celebrating 11 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Cavanaugh Mims.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible. My guest today is Cavanaugh Mims. He is president of Visionary Solutions. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Halloran.
You are a nuclear engineer.
Yes.
I want to figure out, growing up in Columbus, Georgia, what kind of kid from Columbus, Georgia finds his way to becoming a nuclear engineer?
That's an interesting story. My mother was a elementary school teacher. My dad was a drill sergeant. They both were in the humanities in school. I liked math and science, and I decided I wanted to do something different and way different.
How soon did you discover your love for math and science?
Probably middle school.
And why did you like math and science so much?
Because there's an answer. In math, it's not up to interpretation. There is a right answer. You just have to go through the formula.
Right. So you could go to school, you could take classes, and the teacher may not like you, the teacher may feel whatever.
But I got the right answer.
But I have the right answer. And you liked, so did your parents fuel that? My mother was a teacher too, so she really was, she was insistent that I get a great quality education. But then she also did what I called squeezing lighter fluid on any spark of creativity or interest I had. Mm-hmm. When they discovered you had this aptitude, did they kind of fuel it and engage you in a way that made it multiply?
Well, they did. My parents always taught me, and it's not applicable to your show, that actually anything is possible. I was taught to make decisions, I was taught to take responsibility, and I was taught there were no limits to whatever, how hard I wanted to work and how much dedication I put in. It was the only things that were required for me to be successful.
Your dad was a drill sergeant.
Yes, he is, yeah.
Is he still alive?
Yes, he is.
All right, so tell me what it was like growing up with a drill sergeant for a dad.
It was interesting. My father was away earlier, so he came home when I was 8 or 9.
Right.
And so it was really interesting being, as they say, integrated back into the family. We had our way of doing things and our way of doing stuff, and he expected everybody to move when he said move and roll when he said roll and be up at 4:30, and we didn't want to deal with that. So there were some rough spots when he getting reintegrated, but he was very stickler for details.
Really?
Everything had a place. Everything was supposed to be cleaned and put up where it was supposed to be cleaned and put up. And he believed in, and definitely believed in, hard work.
Right. So did you borrow some of that? I mean, are you that way?
I am. And my staff and my family tell you, if I start something, it will get completed, period.
Yeah.
My dad, we used to be out at night and we'd be mowing the grass and we'd think we'd get about done. He'd turn the floodlights, it'd be 9 o'clock, and I'm like, why am I here at 9 o'clock mowing the yard? It can wait till tomorrow. Not with my father.
So
when you started something,
he had a completion imperative.
You had to complete it. What you started to be completed then.
What was your mother like?
My mother was a lot different. My mother was very cerebral. My mother was very planning, very nurturing. My mother had a plan for everything.
Give me an example.
An example of my mother planning, my mother decided one year, and we live in South Georgia, that she wanted a fur coat. And we didn't have much money, and my mother started saving. She probably saved for 15, 20 years.
Really?
And she got the coat. Now, you understand, you're gonna wear it 4 days a year in Georgia, but she'll go get her coat, the first cold snap we get, and she'll wear it, and she takes it back to the store to put it up, but she got it. Everything was planned. There were no accidents in our family. You saved and you planned and executed everything that you did.
Wow. So as I'm watching you develop, through this story, it seems like that mixture has been very beneficial to you.
Oh, wonderful.
Because first of all, you have this completion imperative, but then you also have this strategic mindset.
Yes.
You must have been hell on wheels as a little kid.
I was. I had an older sister who's 10 years older than me, and which she thought she was my second mother, by the way.
Right.
And yeah, I was a little handful.
Were you that kid that was like, if let's say, for instance, some people were talking about something and you knew the answer to it. Were you the kid? Well, the actual answer is
Yeah.
2 point. You were.
I was that kid.
You were that kid.
I was that kid.
How did other kids relate to you?
They didn't like it much.
They didn't like it?
They didn't like it much.
So, but you're a big guy. So were you Urkel-esque?
No, I had my Urkel moments.
Okay.
I'll put it that way, or my nerd moments. But I played football in high school. And so if you can imagine being in the South, being an African-American kid, getting on a bus. I played cello, for example, with a cello on the bus. You took some teasing. By the time I got to be a freshman, so in high school, they didn't bother me anymore. I was big enough and strong enough, and I didn't have those issues. And then actually, it turned out pretty cool.
So now you're growing up, you're playing ball, you're doing math. When you started playing sports, was there any part of you that said, wait a minute, maybe I should go this way?
No, not really.
Not at all? And why not?
How can I best describe this? When I talk to kids a lot, and I talk in motivational speaking, I always ask them what they want to do. And they say, I want to be Michael Jordan. I want to be, they give a name who they want to be. I said, why? Well, they have all this fame and they have all this, they get all the money. And they said, I said, who writes the check? And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, how much money? He makes $25 million a year. I said, why, really? And how about all the other players that play with him? Oh, yeah. I said, but who writes that check? But what do you mean? I said, who owns the stadium? They have to understand somewhere in that chain, there is an owner. And that person gets to do it year after year for as long as they want to. Players come and go. Seasons come and go. Ownership does not change. And so those are the kind of things that I wanted to be, and I always wanted to be an owner.
So you were thinking that back then?
Back then.
I'm just picturing you in Columbus, Georgia, plotting the takeover of the world, and that's probably a pretty neat thing. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation because we got to move you out of Columbus, Georgia, get you into college, and figure out how you become a nuclear engineer. My guest is Cavanaugh Mims. He is the president of Visionary Solutions. You can see that he's a very visionary person. More when we come back.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
If you believe that God is who he says he is, and you believe the way you say you believe, then there's nothing that you cannot do. There's nothing to fear. Fear is not something, you cannot have faith and fear at the same time.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. As you know, these are great stories about great people who prove with their lives that anything is possible. Cavanaugh Mims is a nuclear engineer. He's president of Visionary Solutions. When he was, I guess, in middle school, he decided he loved math and he wanted to take his math and science ability and do something really different, which was becoming a nuclear engineer. When did you find out about nuclear engineering?
I found out sophomore year in high school. They had career fairs and those kind of things that came through, and I talked to my teachers about becoming an engineer. And I have a process of elimination thing. I have a tendency to go where there are few, not many. And so when I looked at disciplines, there were thousands of mechanical engineers, thousands of electrical engineers, only a handful of nuclear engineers. So I was always taught if you want to stand out, you want to stand out among the few, not among the many. So that's the one I chose, and that's literally how I chose it.
Wow. Where did you get that analytical? Is that mom or dad? That's mom?
That's more mom.
More mom? But how did you become that because when I'm a junior in high school, I knew I was going to college, I knew I was going to do something, but I didn't have a process.
That's something my mom taught, and I learned it by watching her and how she went about doing things. And that's how my mother was. There was always a process to everything.
All right, so then how did you pick the college you attended?
It picked me.
Ah.
I was recruited to the University of Tennessee. I was a Fred Brown Scholar. In fact, they're naming the new dormitory after him in the diversity engineering program. So they recruited me to come to the university. And I always tell people, I'm not an accident. I'm a creation. I'm a culmination of a series of people's dreams and a series of people's actions. They had nothing to do with me. Some of them who didn't know me.
Right.
But they laid the foundations for me to take the opportunities I have. And that's just one, and there are many examples in my life that have been that way. And that
so you were recruited because of academics?
Yes, because of academics.
What were your grades like?
I was the 10th or so in my class. I was like the first. I had like a 3.8, 3.7 in high school. And I think I was in the top 10%.
Right, so when you got to UT, you wanted you were recruited, you wanted to study nuclear engineering. Talk about how you went through here.
That was interesting. I never forget my first football game. Back then, and we were on quarters. So school would start in mid-September. So we were here a couple of weeks early, going through pre-calculus and pre-orientation, and nobody was on campus but us and the volleyball team. So they gave us tickets to the first football game. And I got up that morning, I heard all this commotion and all this racket outside the dorm. And it's like overnight, the whole city showed up. And I never forget the first time I walked in Neyland Stadium. There were more people in Neyland Stadium than my whole entire hometown. And to walk in that environment, and that was just phenomenal. I was just blown away. And that was one, and it left a lasting impression too, by the way.
One of the things that happens with, I love engineers for the simple reason, engineers love problems. They love solving problems.
That's what we do.
The prefix EN means to make or to cause. And they cause things to happen. They make stuff. And so all engineers that I know end up getting some type of internship.
Correct.
Right? That's just part of the path. Did you get an internship?
I did. My first one was 4 days out of high school. I worked for Westinghouse at the Clinton River Breeder Reactor in Oak Ridge. And I was there until '83 till Congress canceled that program. Then I was picked up by TVA. And that's how I ended up in Huntsville, Alabama, we were talking about earlier. I interned in Huntsville, Alabama, at the Browns Ferry nuclear plant, and subsequently went there after college.
So did you ever have in mind that you were going to start a company?
No.
That was not in mind.
Not back then.
You, the strategic team, you know, you bristle with this energy as you sit here. You don't seem like there's anything you believe you can't do.
No. That's what my faith teaches me.
What do you mean? Because the first time you said faith.
Okay. There are several things that guide us. One of them, to whom much is given, much is required. And that gets to the thing of service. But it also the Bible also teaches us, if you believe that God is who he says he is, and you believe the way you say you believe, then there's nothing that you cannot do. There's nothing to fear. Fear is not something, you cannot have faith and fear at the same time. They can't coexist.
So you can have fearless faith.
Yes.
Yeah. So you really believe that.
I do.
You seem like a person that believes in being really prepared, and you know you have intellect and ability, but you're coupling that with an unbridled faith.
Yes.
Yeah. So that makes you unstoppable.
I believe that we are called. Everybody should have a mission or a calling that they do. And the sooner you find it, the sooner you can get on that path that you need to be on.
What's your calling?
My calling is to solve problems, environmental problems and challenges, and to teach, and to actually help grow other people and teach other people to become entrepreneurs and other companies.
That's big. My guest is Cavanaugh Mims. He definitely believes anything is possible. He's built a company. Do you mind me saying where you are in terms of revenues?
No problem.
Right now, they're at about $15 million a year in revenues, 90 employees. They teach, they train, they do logistics, and growing. I mean, it's just growing like popcorn, actually. I want to talk about how you got to starting this company, talk about your family coming up. This is Cavanaugh Mims. You're watching Anything is Possible. We'll be right back.
Coming up.
If you talk to all your bosses 5 levels up and none of them suggest doing what they do for a living, and they all suggest you do something else, if you're going to go, that was the time to go.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. My guest today is the president of Visionary Solutions, Cavanaugh Mims. Thank you for joining us. So we were
Thank you.
in your internships at UT. I asked you if you'd ever thought of starting a company. You said no.
Not back then, no.
What was your strategy? Because you're a guy that has a strategy.
My strategy then was just become a corporate executive, basically. As you go through every organization, there's always somebody who sits in the corner office. There's somebody who sits at the end of the hall. And I've always thought, why not me? And so as I started going through things in corporate America, that was pretty much my goal until I found out there are other things in life a little bit more important.
Tell me about your family.
I'm a privileged to marry a wonderful wife, Talicia. We've been married 23 years this May. She's a Knoxville native, Spelman College graduate in chemistry. I have a son, Cavanaugh II. He's a 22-year-old, upcoming senior at Belmont and a vocal performance major.
Do you sing?
No, my wife and son sing.
Okay.
And I have a daughter, Tykira. She's a sophomore at Spelman College. She's a history and pre-med major.
What kind of dad are you?
What kind of dad am I?
Drill sergeant or planner?
Planner.
Yeah.
Always planning. My wife's a drill sergeant. I'm the planner. I plan everything. I drive my kids crazy.
Let's talk about Visionary Solutions, because you've built quite a company. How'd you end up doing that?
I left the department in 2000. Didn't know what I was going to do, but I had 16 years of federal service in, and I had 18 to retire, and I didn't see going through that process. And I was actually encouraged by my senior management not to. And that was an enlightening thing for me.
Wow.
I had to asked my managers two things: knowing what they know, what they do, what they've done for a career, and then what advice they can give me. From my local people all the way through D.C. and Washington, they all told me, knowing what they know now, they would not do what they do for a living. I could not find a single one, all the way up to a president appointee. Then I said, what advice would you give for me at my age? They said, leave. And I went, okay. So if you talk to all your bosses 5 levels up and none of them suggest doing what they do for a living, and they all suggest you do something else, if you're going to go, that was the time to go. And so that was it was a faith move.
My note was that you started with a laptop and a Maxima.
Laptop and a Maxima. That is true.
So how did this?
Literally, I literally walked in, turned in my badge, and said, "Here's my 30-day notice," and left. They wanted to send me for a psych evaluation. They thought I was having a midlife crisis. I was fairly successful as a manager, but that was not what I felt in my heart I was called to do. And that was not where I thought in my heart I was called to be. So I left. I didn't have anything, no contracts, no nothing.
At least you had a few $1 million saved up.
Oh, no. We were up in debt, wife mad, kids confused. But in my heart, I felt I was called out to go do something different.
So what'd you do? How'd you turn it from laptop and Maxima? You guys have a fabulous new facility, and you're moving nuclear fuel and all sorts of stuff. You're recycling, you're making diesel. I mean, what?
That's not me. I have a tremendous staff. And I have a tremendous partner who has a whole lot of faith in me. And what we ended up doing is just solving one problem at a time.
Wow.
We don't market. We do not sell. We go find people that have issues and problems, and we solve them, and that's how we measure success. And so it's almost like a McDonald's thing, you know, how many sold, but that's not us. We fix things, and problems find us, and we grew. We started very, very small as a consultancy, and in that I had a friend of mine here locally that was a program manager who needed somebody to manage some transportation logistics for him. I couldn't spell truck at the time, but I knew how to manage, and I started doing it, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with trucks. I fell in love with drivers. I fell in love with the idea of logistics and moving things, and it grew. Being a minority in that area, I was the only one, just like I was a nuclear engineer. There were no others in this business like me, and we learned to use those things, and we turned that into a positive, not a negative. When you can walk into a room with 300 people, and everybody knew you were there, and everybody knows your name, and you don't know any of them, but the fact your mere presence in that room, they will find out who you are. They will find out why you were there. And instead of, my parents taught me that too as well. We had to be twice as good and make no mistakes. So instead of those things that we typically, especially minorities in business, have as a disadvantage, we learned to make them into a huge, huge advantage.
So why don't we just take the last few minutes, and why don't you treat me as if I'm just a young kid, I'm Urkel in the 8th grade, and I'm trying to figure out where I want to go, and give me your best advice for living the best life and for realizing the fullness of possibility in my life.
To tell you it's simple, it is not. But you have to fundamentally, at your core, understand that your beliefs, your thoughts, and your passions are just as valid as anybody else's on this planet. You have to fundamentally believe that you are called and created for a higher purpose, a higher being than just you. And so what you have to do, there are two positions in life. Either you will be fulfilling your dreams or fulfilling someone else's. There's only two. There's nothing in between. If you're not working to fulfill your dreams, you're now working to fulfill somebody else's. You have to decide which one of those you're going to be. Majority of people like being led. They don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to take risks. Then they get none of the rewards that come with it. They want to defer to others. They want to defer to their thoughts, their dreams, their ideas. Then they get to live with those consequences. To a young person, don't. Whatever you want to be, whatever you want to call it, just remember, whatever organization you're in, somebody has to run it. Someone does. Whatever organization you're a part of, somebody has to guide it. You may not be the top person. You can lead from anywhere in an organization, by the way. Vision does not on an org chart. You can have vision and passion and work ethic in the middle, the bottom, or the top. You know, Martin Luther King said, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper. If you're going to be a janitor, be the best janitor. If you're going to be a CEO, be the best CEO. So whatever you do, wherever you find yourself in an organization, you work for you.
Wow.
The only person you need to worry about and expectation you need to meet are those you set for yourself.
And you need to set them high.
Set them high.
Cavanaugh Mims, what a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. You really are a person of possibility. You are proof positive. You started as an intern with a laptop and a Maxima. Go get you a laptop, and I guess go get you a Maxima and a dream. But thank you for being here today. It's been a blessing having you.
It's an honor to be here.
We'll see you next time on Anything is Possible.